did have an opportunity to speak to Nancy Lockhart, who has been the lead advocate in advocating for the Scott sisters' release. And so I'm going to go ahead and play that clip for you. Tell me how you feel about the news of the sentence being suspended by Governor Haley Barbour.
Well, I mean, it's a bittersweet experience, basically, for me. I'm very happy that the sisters will be released, but I am, very displeased that it sounds to me they will be released as convicted felons. I know that I read several places that a pardon will be requested at a later date, and maybe possibly commutation might be requested at a later date. I feel that with the momentum of the case, with all of the supporters globally, I feel that it is, more important to get the ultimate out of this, while the sisters do have supporters globally. And what I mean by that is I am sorry that a pardon or commutation, were not requested or granted.
And so I guess you would ask people to just remain vigilant and not to become disinterested in the case because there's still battles to be fought.
Yes, I would.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to Black Talk Radio News and Views, and congratulations on your success thus far in winning the release of the sisters. But I do understand that they have not been released. And
they have not been released as of yet. They have not been released.
Okay, and I imagine you will keep the supporters updated on that.
I will. I sure will. And I'd like to thank all the supporters because this really would not have been, this would not have happened if it were not for the supporters around the world and for people like yourself, Mr. Reed, who continued on Blog Talk Radio to get the word out.
Well, certainly, this is what we feel like this sort of platform should be used for. To be the media that we want to see instead of always relying on the mainstream media. And I think that the Scott sisters case is a perfect example of when grassroots media beats the drums that sooner or later it can no longer be ignored by corporate media.
Right.
Well, thank you and congratulations once again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And we are back. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News and Views with Scotty Reed. And so you just heard on that clip Nancy Lockhart, as we spoke to her earlier today, to get her reaction on the Scott sisters' sentence being suspended. Being suspended indefinitely is the language that is being used by Governor Haley Barbour. And as you could tell from her voice, while she is happy that the sisters will be released again as of 6:29, going on 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The sisters still have not been released, so we're still waiting on word of when they will actually physically be released from a Mississippi hellhole. And I don't think you can describe it any other way. But at the same time, she was kind of tepid in her response because it wasn't a pardon. Okay, their sentence wasn't commuted. It was a suspension. And so that led me, when I first heard the news, I asked that question. Are the Scott sisters really free? What does a suspended sentence mean? What does that mean legally? Whenever you're dealing with a court of law, whenever you're dealing with the state government or federal government, language and terminology being used may not be what it seems at face value, and so you have to really, do your research and find out what they're really talking about. Now, this is what a suspended sentence means. In a suspended sentence, the defendant is not actually required to serve time in jail. And we know the Scott sisters spent 16 years in jail. Both of them got double life in prison for this crime. Usually it's given with probation. For an example, let's say you get convicted of a crime and they sentence you to 18 months in prison. Okay, but the judge has the discretion to give you 18 months which is suspended, and then let's say give you 2 years of probation, which means that, you got a probation officer, you got to take drug tests, you got to, meet with the person, you got to be gainfully employed, you got to have a stable place to live. All of these requirements are tied to your probation. And if you violate that probation, then you can go right back to jail and serve the full term of whatever you were sentenced to. So, again, a suspended sentence, which is what was issued by Governor Haley Barbour for the Scott sisters. Both of them received double life sentences. It was simply suspended. And as we stated, and many people are asking the question, it's conditional for one of the sisters. Jamie has kidney problems. She has to undergo weekly dialysis. She needs a new kidney. Okay, and so Governor Haley Barbour said that the condition of Gladys' release is of her giving one of her kidneys to her sister. And so let's say that doesn't happen. Then that means that she has violated her probation. What if they find a better match, somebody in the family, or a better match for her sister? These are just the things that can come up. Well, that would be violating her probation. So, yes, celebrate that they are going to get out of jail, but are they truly free? Now, if they have been issued a pardon, what does a pardon mean? Well, a pardon is a forgiveness for an offense, an order that releases a convicted criminal without further punishment, and it prevents future punishment. See, that's not so in a suspended sentence. Or in some jurisdictions, it removes an offense from a person's criminal record as if it had never been committed. Okay? And so, I got a clip from Democracy Now! With Professor Michelle Alexander, who is the author of the book, The Age of Mass Incarceration, Jim Crow, in the Jim Crow era. I may be butchering the title, but just Google Jim Crow, mass incarceration, Michelle Alexander. But I got a clip that will further explain what it means, why it's important that they get a pardon. Okay? Again, let me read that again. A pardon, forgiveness for an offense, an order that releases a convicted criminal without further punishment and prevents future punishment. And most importantly, removes, and that's in some jurisdictions, I don't know about Mississippi, but it removes an offense from a person's criminal record as if it had never been committed. Now, you also heard Nancy Lockhart talk about having the sentence commuted. Now, so let me read the definition, or one of the definitions that I found pertaining to that. A commutation of sentence involves the reduction of legal penalties, especially in terms of imprisonment. Unlike a pardon, a commutation does not nullify the conviction and is often conditional. Clemency is a similar term that's related to commutation, meaning the lessening of the penalty of the crime without forgiving the crime itself. The act of clemency is a reprieve. Today, pardons and reprieves are granted in many countries when individuals have demonstrated that they have fulfilled their debt to society or are otherwise deserving, in the opinion of the pardoning official, of a pardon or reprieve. Now, when you talk in the United States, when we talk about reprieves or when we talk about clemency, you're often talking about death penalty cases. You're talking about people that's on death row that's facing execution. And so in order to prevent them from being executed, the governor may issue clemency, or the president of the United States, okay, or grant them a reprieve from their execution, which is a sentence. So, again, are the Scott sisters really free? And I'm just taking a legal review of the facts. And so as someone wrote on my Facebook profile in reference to this story, they were asking the same question. Are they really free, or are they just out of jail? And as I wrote in the show description, they are in the same boat as millions, and I stress millions of people in the United States who have been labeled as convicted felons. The battle is not over. And, you know, it's not just about Jamie and Gladys Scott. It is about many of the wrongfully convicted people that find themselves on our prison plantations in incarceration nation. Let's see, I do believe we do have someone calling in from New York. Let me go ahead and take this call. New York, you are on Black Talk Radio News and Views with Scotty Reed. State your first name and go ahead with your question or comment.
Hey, Brother Scotty, this is 70 Soul Child. I was checking you out here in the new. I'm doing good. I was just checking you out here in the new format, and everything looks good. I just haven't been able to get to your shows lately, but I was just listening to see what your discussion is about Gladys and Jamie Scott.
Yes, I'm still on that segment, and I was just I shared a clip from Michelle Alexander, who was on Democracy Now!, talking about mass incarceration and the new Jim Crow. And, you know, I think, and I mentioned you earlier, I didn't mention you by name, 70s, but you had wrote on my profile that you were asking the same question. Are they really free? Are the Scott sisters really free, or are they just getting out of jail? And so what I was talking about was I did an analysis of what it means to have your sentence suspended, what a pardon means, and what it means to have your sentence commuted. And so they receive a suspended sentence, which means that they will come out of prison labeled as felons. And all of the challenges that faces, convicted felons in this country, whether they be innocent or guilty. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I was initially reading the postings on Facebook, we have a lot of the same mutual friends. My first thought was, after just reading the initial headline about giving the kidney, and that was a condition of them being released, I just felt like they weren't really free because their sentence hadn't been, it wasn't even overturned. I think it's an unusual condition for them to be released for the medical purposes. And just the fact that, I think that their time should have been up a long time ago, but that's just me. And so it should have just been, wiped from their record altogether. And I think they should have also been allowed to present new evidence regarding their case.
Right. And the case,
because of some of the things that were going on after the fact, people coming forward and saying they had nothing to do with the crime and things like that I've been reading over the last few months about this case.
Yes, and that is a issue. That's something I brought up earlier about the guys who pled guilty to the crime, later recanted their testimony implicating the sisters, saying that the prosecutors coerced them into testifying and implicating the sisters in exchange for a lesser sentence. And so, those guys came forth and said they had nothing to do with it. And so, you're exactly right. See, a pardon, which they were not issued, means forgiveness for an offense, an order that releases a convicted criminal without further punishment and prevents future punishment. And most importantly, and this is in some jurisdictions, and I don't know about Mississippi, but it removes the offense from the person's criminal record as if it had never been committed. In the case of a suspended sentence, the defendant is not actually required to serve time in jail, which we know they spent 16 years in jail. Usually it's given with probation, which means that if they violate any of the terms of probation, they will be placed right back in jail. And that is what the sisters are facing.
Right, and that was my issue also. So if they're just going to be released from prison, they'll still have to report into a parole officer. They won't have extensive freedom of movement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, all of those things, when I read it, I was like, it just didn't sit right with me after reading the few articles they put out there about it. And I really don't think, especially the people that have been advocating on their behalf, should be happy about it. I know Gladys and Jamie are happy about it because they're going to be home with their families, but there are, like you said, other repercussions with that, you know? So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I spoke to Nancy Lockhart earlier today, and I played a clip from her earlier in the program. And, you know, she said she had mixed emotions about it for the very reasons that we just talked about. And she said that she heard that a pardon may be issued or recommended in the future. And, you know, that's really what is due here. With all the things that me and you just cited, the people coming forward saying they didn't have anything to do with it. And, I mean, to me, under the Constitution, cruel and unusual punishment is prohibited. And if they were guilty of the crime, less than $12, nobody was hurt, double life in prison, that's cruel and unusual punishment, which is in violation of the Constitution. And then there is also the issue with her medical condition. You know, one of the questions I was asked, okay, if you're a convicted felon, we know that a lot of times they're prohibited from living in public housing. They may not be able to get certain services, whether it be state or federal services like food stamps, Medicaid. How are they going to pay for this kidney transplant? If indeed, as convicted felons, and I don't know this for a fact, but I know it's a very strong likelihood that as convicted felons, they may not be eligible for Medicaid. So who's going to pay for the transplant?
That's a good question. But no, they are not eligible for any federal public services at all. As a matter of fact, once you become a felon, the way I've read it, and I've interpreted is that you pretty much lose your citizenship and your rights to anything in regards to the federal government, any programs, plan, anything like that. So, yeah, it's rough. It's rough. It's really rough. You'll never be able to get hired by the federal government. You won't be able to get certain jobs. You're completely blocked out of society. You can't vote.
It's legal discrimination is what it is.
Right. So basically, yeah, they're like I said, they're not really free in the sense of as you and I are free.